They say every mother hides a story behind her silence. Mine was buried under years of secrets and sacrifices no one ever thanked me for. My daughter used to look at me with love. Then one day, she looked at me with hate and said I'd ruined her life. She never knew what it cost me to keep her world from falling apart. She only saw the surface, the rules, the refusals, the locked doors. But behind those doors, I hid something far greater than guilt. Something I promised never to reveal until the day she screamed those words. That day, everything I buried started clawing its way back. And the truth came with a price neither of us expected. But before I continue, make sure you're subscribed to the Old Folks channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. We love to see how far our stories travel. The afternoon sun filtered weakly through the lace curtains, casting thin lines of light across the living room floor. The air smelled faintly of old books and jasmine tea, quiet, until a sudden scream shattered it. "You ruined my life." Her daughter's voice echoed off the walls, trembling with rage and heartbreak. The old woman froze, teacup in hand, her fingers tightening around the handle until it cracked. She had heard many words from her daughter before: disappointment, frustration, silence, but never these. The words pierced deeper than she expected, reopening a wound that had never healed. The daughter stood near the door, face red, eyes brimming with anger and tears. "You never supported me. You never wanted me happy," she shouted. The mother tried to speak, her lips parting, but no sound came, only the faint tremble of breath. Her daughter's hand shook as she grabbed her purse and keys, storming out without looking back. The sound of the door slamming echoed long after she was gone. The mother sat back slowly, staring at the broken teacup on the rug, as if it were her heart lying there, shattered in silence. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. The house felt suddenly enormous and empty. She whispered softly, "If only you knew what I gave up for you." Her voice cracked, almost swallowed by the ticking of the old clock. In her mind, she saw flashes, hospital lights, a crying infant, a promise made in desperation. The memories were heavy, like ghosts pressing on her chest. But now, she realized, maybe it was time to let one of them out. That night, sleep refused to come. She sat at her dressing table, the dim lamp casting a golden halo over the framed photo of her younger self holding her baby. Her trembling hands reached for the drawer she hadn't opened in years. Inside, wrapped in a faded handkerchief, was a wooden box, her past sealed shut. As she opened it, the smell of old paper and dust filled the room, along with the faint scent of lavender. She hesitated, part of her wanted to close it again. But the silence demanded answers. Inside were old letters, some from her late husband, others from people she hadn't seen in decades. One envelope stood out, yellowed, marked "For her eyes only." Her breath hitched as she traced the handwriting. It was from him. The man she'd once loved, and later feared. Her fingers trembled as she slid the letter open, eyes scanning each word, her heart pounding louder than the rain outside. When she reached the end, her face turned pale. The secret she thought she buried had never really died. She folded the letter back carefully, almost reverently. Outside, lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating her reflection in the mirror, aged, tired, and filled with regret. "What if she finds out?" she whispered. For the first time in years, her composure broke, a single tear slid down her cheek. She knew her daughter's anger was only the beginning. Because once truth starts moving, it doesn't stop. The sound of rain carried her mind backward, to a night 25 years ago. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and panic. She remembered clutching her newborn close, the doctor's voice sharp and urgent. "You have to make a choice," he said. The man beside her, the one she trusted, stood silent, eyes cold. Her world had spun around those few words, and in that spinning chaos, she made a decision she could never undo. She signed the paper with shaking hands, watching her tears blur the ink. The man promised her that everything would be fine, that her child would have a better life. But his smile had been too calm, too knowing. When she looked back, he was already gone, leaving her with a child, a contract, and a lifetime of guilt. She pressed the baby's tiny hand against her cheek, whispering, "I'll make it right. Somehow." But even then, she knew she wouldn't. Years passed, but the choice haunted her like a shadow that never left. Every birthday, every laugh, every moment of joy with her daughter carried the silent echo of that night. She had given up something sacred, not money, not love, but truth. And truth, once buried, grows teeth. The present felt heavier now. Every corner of the house whispered memories: the piano her daughter once played, the hallway where they argued about college. Each sound in the night, a creaking floorboard, a sigh of wind, made her uneasy. She had lived too long pretending. But the storm that started earlier that day wasn't just outside, it had settled deep in her chest. When she went into her daughter's old room, the air felt still, untouched for years. She ran her fingers across the dust on the dresser, stopping on a small photograph, her daughter smiling beside a man she never liked. She felt the sting of guilt again. She had kept her from that man on purpose, because of what she knew. But had she protected her, or imprisoned her? The question twisted like a knife. The phone rang suddenly, startling her. She answered, silence at first, then a voice she hadn't heard in decades. "You thought I'd forget, didn't you?" the voice said coldly. Her breath caught. "Who is this?" she asked, but deep down, she already knew. "The past doesn't die that easily," the voice replied, and the line went dead. The next day, she found an envelope on her doorstep. No return address, only her name written in bold ink. Inside was a single photograph, her daughter, taken recently, outside her workplace. On the back, one line, "Tell her, or I will." Her knees weakened as she sank to the floor. The storm outside roared again, but it was nothing compared to the one now raging inside her. She spent the night sitting by the fire, staring at the photo. The flames reflected in her tired eyes, dancing like ghosts. The man's voice echoed in her head, the man who knew too much. "If she finds out, she'll hate you forever." That sentence wouldn't stop repeating. Could she survive her daughter's hatred again? Or was it better to face it now, before someone else twisted the truth first? Morning came, but it brought no peace. She folded the photo, placed it inside her pocket, and whispered to herself, "It's time." She wasn't sure if she was ready, but sometimes, the truth doesn't wait for readiness. It just arrives, uninvited. The clock ticked softly in the living room as the mother sat alone, turning the small wooden box over in her hands. She had promised herself she'd tell the truth someday, but not tonight. Not yet. Her heart felt too tired, her voice too fragile. As she debated where to even begin, the sound of the front door startled her. Her daughter stood there, hair slightly damp from the evening rain, smiling faintly. "Mom, do you still have those old documents from when Dad passed? I need them for work." The mother nodded, hiding the unease in her chest. "Yes, dear. They should be in the drawer. Let me make us some tea." But as she walked into the kitchen, her ears caught something faint, the quiet creak of her bedroom door opening. Her pulse quickened. That door hadn't been opened in years. The water boiled slowly, hissing against the cold metal of the pot. She tried to calm herself, convincing her mind that it was nothing. Perhaps her daughter had gone to look for a pen, or maybe she was just wandering. But her gut told her otherwise. Minutes passed, swallowed by heavy silence. When she finally stepped into the hallway, the dim light from her bedroom spilled into the corridor like a secret uncovered. She froze at the doorway. The wooden box lay open on the bed, its contents scattered like forgotten memories. Her daughter stood there, motionless, holding a single folded letter marked in faded ink, "For her eyes only." Her hands trembled as she opened it. The mother's heart sank into her stomach. The past she'd buried so carefully had just come back to life. The daughter's lips moved as she read, her eyes darting from one line to the next, confusion giving way to horror. "Who is this man?" she whispered. "Why does he talk about me like I'm not yours?" Her mother's throat tightened, words refused to come. She took a small step forward, but her daughter recoiled like she had touched fire. Tell me the truth, she cried, her voice cracking under the weight of betrayal. Please, just tell me. The mother's fingers gripped the doorframe for balance. The air between them was thick, trembling, alive with a secret that could no longer be contained. The storm outside had grown wild by the time words turned to shouting. The rain pounded against the windows, each drop echoing the tremor in their voices. You lied to me my whole life, the daughter screamed, her tears shining in the flickering light. Everything I believed, every word you told me, it was all fake. The old woman's chest rose and fell unevenly. You don't understand, she said, her tone soft but desperate. I did what I had to do. But her daughter's laughter came out broken, not from amusement, but pain. Don't you dare tell me this was for me. The daughter's eyes were sharp, glistening with betrayal. You made me live in a dream built on your lies, she shouted. The mother finally broke, her knees shaking, her eyes flooding with years she could no longer hold back. I didn't ruin your life, she whispered hoarsely, her voice trembling like a candle in the wind. I gave up mine so you could have one. The words hung in the air, still and heavy. Even the storm outside seemed to pause, as if listening. The daughter blinked, her fury flickering into confusion. The silence that followed felt louder than any scream. Her daughter's voice softened for the first time. What are you talking about? She asked, her breath unsteady. The mother swallowed hard, her eyes red and glistening. Sit down, she said finally, the weight in her tone undeniable. You deserve to know everything. The daughter hesitated, but the look in her mother's eyes, broken, pleading, human, made her obey. As they sat facing each other, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. What she was about to hear would change everything she ever believed about love, loss, and sacrifice. The mother began slowly, her voice fragile like an old record spinning. It was the night you were born, she said. You were so weak, the doctors didn't think you'd survive the night. Her hands trembled as she spoke. We had no money left. I was alone, your father had died, and I was drowning in debt. She paused, her eyes far away. Then he came. The man in the letter. He offered to pay for your surgery. But his help came with a price. Her daughter's lips parted in disbelief. What price? The mother looked at her, eyes glistening. I had to sign you away. The words fell like glass shattering. The daughter's face went white. You sold me, she stammered, tears blurring her vision. No, the mother said quickly, shaking her head. I never stopped fighting for you. I did what no mother should ever have to do. I begged. I lied. I made deals just to keep you close. Her voice cracked under the weight of it all. Every lie I told, every secret I kept, was to keep you safe from him. The daughter's body trembled as the truth sank in. The rain outside softened, as if the world itself had paused to listen. I gave up everything, the mother continued quietly. My name, my peace, even your trust, all of it. Her daughter couldn't hold back anymore. She dropped the letter, covered her face, and began to cry. The mother didn't touch her, she knew some distances could only close in silence. In that silence, something fragile, a thread of understanding, began to mend between them. Thunder rumbled faintly in the distance. What she was about to hear would change everything she ever believed about love, loss, and sacrifice. The days that followed felt slow and dreamlike. The daughter stayed in her old room, the same room she'd once played in as a child. She barely spoke. Her meals went cold. But every night, her eyes would fall on the box, the one that had broken her world and rebuilt it in new light. The mother moved quietly through the house, watching, waiting, praying that one day her daughter would look at her not with anger, but with love again. One morning, as sunlight spilled through the curtains, the daughter found an old locket tangled in a ribbon. She opened it gently, revealing a faded photo of herself as a baby and a small, fragile note tucked inside, for when she's ready to know how much I loved her. The handwriting was unmistakable, her mother's. Her throat tightened, and her hands trembled as tears filled her eyes. For the first time, she didn't see the woman who lied. She saw the woman who had lived every day carrying the weight of that life for her. That evening, she stood silently in the doorway of her mother's room. The older woman sat by the window, staring out at the fading sunset, her hands folded in her lap. "Mom," she said softly. The old woman turned, startled. "Can we talk?" The mother's lips trembled into the smallest of smiles. For the first time in years, the distance between them felt bridgeable, fragile but real, like dawn after a long storm. Here would change everything she ever believed about love, loss, and sacrifice. They sat together by the window, the twilight painting the world in hues of gold and gray. For a while, neither spoke. The air between them was heavy but calm, like the quiet sea after a raging storm. The daughter finally reached out, her fingers trembling as they closed around her mother's fragile hand. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "For the things I said, for not seeing sooner." The mother smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting both pain and peace. "You have nothing to be sorry for," she whispered. "Love doesn't need to be understood to be real." They sat like that for a long time, the soft hum of the night filling the room. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the moon broke through the clouds. The daughter rested her head on her mother's shoulder, something she hadn't done since she was a child. "You didn't ruin my life," she said, her voice breaking. "You saved it." The old woman closed her eyes, the faintest tear slipping down her cheek. "That's all I ever wanted," she murmured. Before they went to bed, the mother reached for the final letter, the one she had never opened herself. She placed it gently in her daughter's hands. "This was meant for you," she said. "When you were ready." The daughter unfolded it slowly, her breath catching as she read the first line. "My greatest gift wasn't giving you life, it was learning to let you live." Her eyes filled again, but this time with something pure, gratitude, love, understanding. The two women sat together, holding each other as dawn began to rise, washing the house in quiet light. They say forgiveness comes when the heart finally sees what the eyes never did. For years, she hated me for the choices I made, and I let her. Because love, sometimes, means carrying the blame in silence. The day she read that letter, the world stopped spinning for both of us. She finally saw not the mother who ruined her dreams, but the woman who gave up her own. And maybe that's how life works, we only understand sacrifice after it's too late to say thank you. So if you still have someone who loves you quietly, without words or praise, don't wait for the truth to find you. Tell them you see them, before time decides you can't.